your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. Thanks so much for joining us for a look at what's been making headlines in Alberta. Alberta wildfire officials say a state of local emergency has been declared at the Little Red River Cree Nation. Close to 1,000 residents have been evacuated from Garden River in Wood Buffalo National Park. Alberta Wildfire says the fire threatening the community is about 8 kilometers away from the only highway into town. It's classified as out of control and estimated to be about 460 square kilometers in size. Officials with the city of Calgary say progress is being made on stabilizing the water distribution system following repairs to the ruptured feeder main. They say, however, more time is needed before they're able to lift outdoor water restrictions. Some outdoor use is being allowed, which includes water needed for construction on home renovation projects. Calgarians are encouraged to continue using water collected from rain barrels or indoors. It's the final weekend for the event dubbed the greatest outdoor show on earth. In Calgary earlier this week, crowds lined up at the Stampede to get pancakes from Premier Danielle Smith.
The Stampede has been central to Calgary's identity for nearly its entire existence, and people might find it surprising that a 10-day party is one of the things that Calgary is best known for. But it's because this is a town that is famous for its grit and its hard work. But the Stampede fever that grips the city every summer proves that Calgarians, we know how to let loose.
The Stampede attracts more than 1 million local and international visitors each year. This year, make that 1 million minus 1, though. It won't be attracting our Prime Minister, however, who has decided to skip the event. Many within the Liberal caucus say it just wasn't possible for Justin Trudeau also having to attend NATO meetings right now. But according to our political reporter and Toronto Sun columnist, Brian Lilly, he's not buying it.
That is correct, because no one has developed a technology to transport an individual from Calgary to Washington in Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in 5 days. You possibly can't. It's a ridiculous argument. Of course he could have attended, and if he was scheduled to attend. They've known when Stampede was for a long time. They knew when the NATO meetings were. He could have shown up Friday or Saturday, still been in Washington, D.C. for plenty of time for the NATO meetings. We know why he's not there. He would be about as popular as that pancake flip that everyone was sharing over the weekend on social media, where Justin Trudeau flips a pancake, I think it was at last year's Stampede, and it just splatters everywhere. They're making excuses with anything else they tell you. It's their popularity.
In other news, the lack of childcare spaces in Alberta continues to be a concern for many. Susan Cake, a chair with the Childcare Now Alberta, says the province doesn't have adequate space for children who need daycare. She also says as of 2021, when the federal provincial childcare agreement was signed to reduce childcare fees by more than 50%, Alberta only had licensed spaces for 26% of the kids in the province.
This comes from years of neglecting this area and not funding it appropriately. And then that, in combination with the influx of population that Alberta's had, means there's even more stress. We've seen other provinces make really big improvements, and Alberta really seems to be dragging its feet. So some of the other provinces, they have wage grids that are increasing the wages of ECEs. They're also providing health benefits and dental benefits. And some provinces have introduced defined benefit pension plans.
According to the Alberta government, the province is advancing the development of the Space Creation Grant that will help to build more than 68,000 new licensed spaces by 2026. That includes 42,500 nonprofit spaces and 26,000 private spaces for profit. The Alberta government announced that it's expanding its food safety and certification program. Officials say this will help to support our beef producers. They say in 2023, beef was our province's largest agri-food export at $3.9 billion. The province will be providing Alberta beef producers with close to $1.9 million for its on-farm food safety program through the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership.
They're going to have new outreach efforts that will see Alberta beef producers working with industry partners like agricultural societies and ag fieldmen to organize at least 30 community events over the next 4 years.
Coming up after the break, on this final weekend of Stampede, we hear from our legislative correspondent about how many politicians use the event as a tool to drum up support. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The Calgary Stampede wraps up this weekend with visitors from all over the world taking in the greatest outdoor show on earth. There are also some politicians. They're drumming up their support, kissing babies and shaking hands. To chat about this in more detail is our legislative reporter and Alberta correspondent for the National Post, Tyler Dawson, who sat down with BCN's Hal Roberts. Take a look.
Tyler, it appears as though Premier Daniel Smith and newly elected NDP leader Naheed Nenshi have been gaining thousands of supporters at a lot of their Stampede events.
They have, yeah. And, the events are generally pretty well attended, but what they're saying certainly is that they're seeing even more people than previous years. Nenshi, holding his first event as NDP leader, brought out, I think staff said about 4,000 people came out to his event and to hear him speak. And Danielle Smith had a pretty big turnout as well. She was welcoming some American politicians and stuff like that in town to have meetings and all that. So, it's sort of a regular part of the summer circuit for politicians, whether you're a federal politician or a provincial politician. The NDP caucus, for example, for sure has been out at some of Nenshi's events, and it's it's a chance for them to meet with supporters and meet people who are maybe not supporters. And also the networking is such a huge part of the Calgary Stampede. There's lobby firms and law firms and businesses that put on parties and events and things like that. So it's really just a big opportunity for everyone to schmooze if they so desire. And like I said, an integral part of that summer circuit. And what better place is there to do that than in the sun in Calgary on a lovely July week or so?
Absolutely. And this is nothing new for Naheed Nenshi. He used to be the former Calgary mayor, so he has his fair share of Stampedes under his belt buckle there. Now, has Naheed Nenshi talked any further about the potential of severing ties with the federal NDP, kind of distancing themselves a little bit now that he's leader?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it hasn't come up all that much, I don't think. I think it's a conversation that's going to happen. It's unavoidable at this point, and some of the polling suggests that might actually improve the NDP fortunes. So it wouldn't surprise me. Well, we'll certainly hear more about it. At this point, I think there's maybe some other priorities for the New Democrats getting out there and introducing themselves to people. And what I was about to say too, that Calgary it's likely going to be the battleground in the next election. That's really where the election was decided in 2023, I guess it was. And I think there's every reason to expect that's where we'll see that battle again. And Nenshi, as you said, he's had Stampedes before as mayor of Calgary. He's been around in Calgary for a long time, but he's a new face on the provincial scene, and he needs to reintroduce himself to Calgary voters. He was not the world's most popular mayor when he left the mayor's office, and Calgarians, I think, feel like they know him and know his record. And for some Calgarians, that's a very, very good thing. For other Calgarians, that's a very, very bad thing. And so he's, I think, got some work to do in Calgary. Edmonton, of course, tends to be an NDP stronghold, but we also don't have, 11 years or whatever it was of him as our mayor. So there's going to be some work to be done in Edmonton and Calgary. And, I think the rural areas are maybe largely a write-off for the New Democrats, and that is what it is. But it's important for him in particular, I think, to be at all of these events, as many as he can possibly, squeeze in to let people know who he is, reassure people that he isn't the person that the UCP says he is, because, of course, they've also launched a major attack ad campaign against him.
So, Tyler, any more talk here in Lethbridge about a potential by-election? Has Premier Smith maybe said anything since Shannon Phillips stepped down as the representative for NDP Lethbridge West?
Yeah, not that I've seen, actually, but it's got to be coming up soon. I think there's 6 or 8 weeks or something like that to make the announcement of when that by-election will happen. And then I would expect it to be held maybe towards the fall, when people are sort of back in the office, so to speak. Nobody shows up to a summer by-election, certainly, let alone a summer general election campaign. No one shows up to those either. So I would expect to hear more about that ahead, and that's going to be a really important one to watch. I think we've talked about this before. That it's going to be a chance for the NDP to show they can hold on to a seat that's going to be pretty heavily contested. It's a big loss of a prominent member of the NDP caucus, and they're going to want to keep that seat. And Nenchi's going to want to show that he can be competitive in ridings outside of Edmonton and parts of Calgary. So it's going to be, there's a lot of talk sometimes about by-elections being a bellwether or taking the temperature of the parties, showing us how the winds are blowing in politics. Sometimes that's true. The case of the recent by-election in Toronto that the Conservatives won when the Liberals had held it for the last, 15 or 20 years maybe. And this is, I think, going to be another one. This will really show what the NDP has got under its belt when it comes to actually winning elections.
With many parts of the country experiencing a bit of a heat wave this week, including right here in southern Alberta, we tell you where to go to cool down and which agencies are there to help those who are most at risk. We'll be right back. With Lethbridge in the midst of a summer heat wave, community agencies are working together to ensure our city's most vulnerable stay hydrated. Currently, local food banks are holding a water drive to satisfy the need for safe water in the heat of the summer. BCN's Brett Brown has more.
Safe drinking water is essential to the city's most vulnerable, especially when temperatures climb into the 30s. During the summer, local food banks collect and store donated bottled water. A group of 9 community partners then ensure it gets distributed to those who need it most. Executive Director of the Interfaith Food Bank, Danielle McIntyre, says the program fulfills an important need in the community.
And Lethbridge consistently experiences situations where individuals and families are not always able to escape the heat. So it's important that our groups work together to be able to make sure that if we can't escape the heat, we can at least keep people hydrated.
McIntyre says local individuals, businesses, and even community groups support the program with donations of water and money. The Interfaith Food Bank and the Lethbridge Food Bank collect and store the water donations, which are matched by the City of Lethbridge up to a total of $5,000. McIntyre said donations of bottled water tend to increase when it gets hot, but tens of thousands of bottles will be needed throughout the summer.
We knew the heat was coming, and so we have seen some people who annually participate with this bringing in their donations. We're hoping that we will see an influx over the next few weeks, because I don't think that we are going to see a reprieve from the heat anytime soon.
With the mercury rising in Lethbridge, officials are once again reminding us that public water stations are available across the city, including at Henderson Lake Park, Nicholas Sharon Park, Legacy Park, and at Galt Gardens downtown. Hours for the spray parks at Legacy and Rotary Centennial have been extended from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. City officials also say there are several groups available to help those most vulnerable during this heat wave. That includes the YWCA Harbor House, Woods Homes, Streets Alive Mission, the Lethbridge Soup Kitchen, and the Sage Clan. Sometimes dreams do come true. Les Vonkeman had a dream to become a police officer. It was realized when he joined the Lethbridge Police Service more than 20 years ago. As BCN's Heidi Ikaveria explains, Vonkeman is now one of the diversity officers with the Community Resource Team at the LPS who continues to make a difference in his community.
Friendly, compassionate, and caring is the way in which Les Vonkeman, the only Indigenous police officer in the Lethbridge Police Service, approaches our city's vulnerable communities. That is his trademark.
They definitely feel a lot more comfortable with me as a whole. Quite often they'll call me, brother or sister. My last name is Vonkeman, which is not Indigenous at all, and but most people don't ask. But I do talk about my story quite a bit about being part of the 60 scoop, getting scooped out of my community up in northern Alberta and getting flown to Lethbridge area, and then getting raised by Dutch people out on a farm northeast of Lethbridge here.
During his time as a police officer, Les faced resistance because of his Indigenous roots, but that did not stop him.
Times people would assume that I was just hired because they needed an Indigenous police officer. I also faced prejudice from Indigenous people that they're thinking, well, because I'm a police officer, I think I'm more important than them, and so they treat me differently. You know, I've been called all kinds of names, such as apple, right? Red on the outside, but white on the inside. I have this belief as well that we almost have to work double just to help people understand that we're not lazy, that we're here to work, we're here to do our job, and we're competent and able to do it. I rely on my spirituality, I rely on my faith in order to get that peace for myself.
He has served the Lethbridge community as a police officer for 23 years and would love to see more Indigenous people serve the way that he does.
You know, I'm looking forward to, finishing off my career here as a police officer in a good way. I want to see more Indigenous officers come into the Lethbridge Police Service.
What an inspiring story. And speaking of inspiration, stay tuned because we're about to feature some very special individuals whose stories might just trigger all your feels for you. Those are coming right up next. Keep it right here. Welcome back. A Calgary man says his life completely changed after receiving some much needed dental work. Not only has the bullying he was subject to over the years of his appearance, of his teeth stopped, but he is also using the experience to educate others about judging people on appearance alone. BCN's Naveen Day has that incredible story.
Just over 3 years ago on Bridge City News, we brought you the story of Paul Bennett of Calgary. He spent years of his life being ridiculed over the appearance of his teeth. Fed up of the bullying, he decided to do something about it and began saving up the thousands of dollars needed for a full extraction of teeth and a denture fitting. Even his son and employer pitched in funds. But on the day of his procedure, he received a surprise. Here is part of that story from 2021.
People have driven by and said to me, "Oh, nice car you have." And then turned around and said to me things like, "Why didn't you take that money and put it into your teeth?"
I just thought how sad it is that people tend to judge before they actually get to know the person. And Paul's a great guy. If you can just look past that, hey, he might have bad teeth, but we don't know his circumstance. We're so inspired by your story and what you've been through that we're going to step it up and we're going to do this for free.
Wow.
You're an amazing man, and I am so inspired by you. I am so inspired by you.
And when Paul sees his new set of pearly whites, he and his girlfriend can barely contain themselves.
Got some teeth there. They're nice and white and straight.
You look great. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm now joined with Paul Bennett. He's here to give an update to his story. Now, Paul, I last saw you in 2021, and when I interviewed you right before your procedure, you seemed very beat down. Now, I'm looking at you now. This is a very different person before me. You're much more positive. You look so much happier. You're smiling in front of me. What has happened over the last 3 years? Just give us an update.
Well, my life has definitely changed. The reactions people have when you have teeth compared to not is amazing. One of the stories I'll share real quick is I had a customer I had done a job for when I had no teeth. And when I went back to do another job for that person, I had my new teeth. The first thing the customer says to me is, "Paul, you got new teeth. They look amazing." You know, things like that have been the reactions of people. New employees that come and work for us. You know, they right away comment on my teeth and how nice they look. Just the overall feeling and the way people treat me is totally different and more warming and welcoming compared to when I didn't have teeth.
What has that done for your mental health?
amazing. It makes me feel more confident, makes me feel better about myself, makes me smile all the time when people say things that are funny instead of sitting there looking angry. Now I'm laughing and I'm smiling and stuff, so it's been huge.
And you say that you've shared your story with hundreds of people, and there's been a ripple effect. Can you just tell us about that ripple effect, what has happened, and what message your story has sent out?
Well, it's been amazing, the response from people. I've shown customers that we do jobs for, I've shown family, I've shown friends. Almost everyone that I get an opportunity to show it to, I do. And the message is simple, of kindness to others. And they've turned around and said, you know, I'm going to do something today just to be kind to someone. And that sometimes is something as simple as buying a coffee for someone in behind you in the lineup. You know, just little things like that, letting someone in the lanes in traffic and stuff, you know.
And what about the message of prejudging others? Because you were judged for years just because of the way your teeth looked.
You know, when we judge other people, we're taken away from ourselves too, because we don't get to learn the opportunities that they can bring not only to our life or say in a job interview thing, how they can be as an employee and what they can bring to the company. We're putting biased views in front that block us from seeing the real gifts that people have to offer and the beauty people have to offer to us.
Thank you so much for your time, Paul, today. Is there anything else you want to add? Any final thoughts?
The only thing I would say is continue to do acts of kindness to people. It doesn't have to be big, it can be little, but it makes a big difference for the people you do it for.
Thank you so much. I'm Naveen Day. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.
After the break, another heartwarming tale about a man who battled the odds to break free of addiction. We'll be right back. In a world where so many people are battling addictions and suffering, one man found his way out. Alan Nelson says it was his faith which helped set him free and on the right path of healing. BCN's Heidi Echeverria has that powerful story.
When I had an encounter with God and accepted Jesus into my heart, and that was the game changer. That was the game changer in my recovery journey.
Alan Nelson is a man who battled addictions for more than 40 years. He had to deal with the guilt of losing loved ones as a consequence of his addictions. He says only Jesus Christ gave him the victory to overcome and allowed him to change his life. Alan Nelson shares his story.
My addiction started when I was probably about 14 years old. The first time I drank alcohol, it did something to me that I really liked. So everybody, all of my family drank, and everybody I knew drank, and that was just normal. So I drank just like everybody else. And then I joined the military in 1968, and the military very much revolves around drinking a lot of times. And so everybody drank, so I drank. I think I knew very early that it did something to me that I didn't like, but yet there was enough that I liked that I wanted to keep going there, because then I could be happy and I could dance and be a big joker and everything, and I just wanted everybody to like me. But it got to the point where I had to have it.
Lost my wife, my daughter, my friend Larry. I'm just ever so thankful that my daughter Tina wasn't home that night. 3 people lost their lives as a direct result of addiction.
It was October 22nd of 1988 that an investigation determined that a house fire from a cigarette claimed the life of Nelson's wife Karen, daughter Shannon, and his friend Larry. Nelson himself spent 2 months in a burn ward in a Calgary hospital as a result of the injuries sustained from the blaze.
Well, after I lost my wife and daughter, the alcohol took away some of the pain for a short period of time, and the cocaine took it away faster. She was 15 when her mom and sister died, and then it was 18 years later, so she was married with 2 kids already when I was on the cocaine. And you know, it came to the point where I loved my daughter very much, and we always cherished the time we had together. But I phoned her one day and said, "Oh, I'm going to come for a visit." She said, "No, you can't come anymore, Dad."
During this terrible journey, something else came into Nelson's life. Cocaine was supposed to make him forget his past. But like any addictions that lies, it submerged him even further to the point that he almost lost his other daughter and grandchildren, causing pain to those who love him the most.
I had gone to different government-sponsored rehabs, and I knew all the words of recovery. I just didn't take the actions of recovery. But none of them brought Jesus into the equation. And I knew right away when I got to Teen Challenge something was different, because people were smiling, you know, and people seemed happy.
Nelson was running out of options, but fortunately a helping hand came into his life. He decided to enter a rehabilitation center. It was Teen Challenge, which not only offers rehabilitation but also the opportunity to meet Jesus, who makes all things new.
And now in Christ, I know who I am. I'm involved in my community, and I'm involved in my church. I'm involved in 12-step meetings through Alcoholics Anonymous.
Nelson says, thanks to Jesus, he now has a purpose in his life.
But I strive to do that, to show love, to show Christ's love to others. If I can get even that close to showing Christ's love to others, then my day is a success.
Nelson says he wants to continue showing Christ's love through his volunteer work at Teen Challenge and his effort at the Lethbridge Soup Kitchen.
After the break, we switch gears. As the world stands at the threshold of AI, the question some have is, what does this mean for my job? We dive into that next.